Ashes of Amasoma. From Ashes to Understanding. Welcome to African Stories and Tales by Asada, the Cynic Driver's YouTube channel. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to leave comments, like, share, and subscribe so that you'll be the first to be notified of our next video coming up. We appreciate your subscription. In the kingdom of the eyes on land, where mangroves kiss the river and history is carved into the soil, pain often passes from one generation to the next like inheritance. Ashes of Amasoma is not just a story of love. It is a story of courage, healing, and defiance in the face of tribal conflict. Through the eyes of Tari, a quiet girl shaped by the grief of her father's death, and Ebiye, the son of a man once seen as the enemy, we are reminded that the heart often sees what the world chooses to ignore. This story honors those who dare to love across boundaries, who ask difficult questions, and who believe peace is worth the price. Let this tale prepare the viewer. Love may not always be enough to stop a war, but it may be strong enough to start the healing. The morning sun crept gently over the mangroves of Amasoma, casting golden ripples on the river that wound through the village like a sacred thread. Inside a mud-walled compound near the edge of the forest, Tari stood silently, staring at the water as if it held answers to the ache in her chest. She had grown quieter since her father's death, murder during a bitter land dispute between her clan, the Ebiye, and their fierce rivals, the Boma clan. What was once a cheerful home had turned into a shrine of grief. Her mother, Mama Tari, barely spoke now, haunted by the memory of her husband's lifeless body carried into the compound on the shoulders of weeping elders. Though months had passed, the scars were still fresh, and Tari bore hers not on her skin, but deep in her soul. She wandered the banks of the river most days, sketching figures in the sand and whispering old songs her father once sang. It was during one of these walks that her life took a sharp turn. From across the river, a boy with sharp eyes and quiet grace stood watching her. His name was Ebiye. Unknown to her, he was the son of Chief Tamuno, the Boma clan's negotiator, the very man who had sat across from her father in tense land talks that ended in blood. Their eyes met briefly. In that moment, history seemed to pause, but the air was thick with unseen tension. Neither spoke. The river between them mirrored the divide of their tribes, yet something deeper stirred beneath its surface, something neither of them could name. Tari couldn't shake the image of the boy by the river. For days, she returned to the same spot, heart racing at the thought of seeing him again. At first, it felt like betrayal. How could she long for the presence of someone from the clan that took her father's life? Yet something in Ebiye's eyes had called to her. It wasn't arrogance or pride. It was a quiet sorrow, one she knew too well. One afternoon, he crossed the river in a wooden canoe, his hands steady as he rowed through the muddy waters. Tari watched him approach, frozen with a mix of fear and curiosity. When he reached the shore, he said nothing at first. He sat a few feet from her and stared at the sky. "You always come here," he said after a long silence. Tari didn't respond. "I do too. I just never thought I'd talk to someone from the other side." She turned to face him, her voice low. "We are not supposed to talk." He nodded. "I know, but I'm tired of the silence." Despite her better judgment, she didn't leave. There was something disarming about him, something that softened her guarded heart. And for the first time since her father's death, Tari felt something more than pain. She felt curious, intrigued, alive. Their meetings became frequent but secret. Always at dusk, when the fireflies came out and the river whispered old songs to the wind. They never crossed into each other's villages, only met at the neutral riverbank, a space untouched by hate. Ebiye spoke of his dreams, of leaving the bitter politics behind, of traveling beyond the delta. Tari, in turn, shared stories of her father's laughter and the lullabies her mother used to hum when the world still felt whole. One evening, as they lay on the grass watching stars, Ebiye turned to her. "My father wouldn't approve of this," he said. Tari looked away, her jaw tightening. "Mine would curse it." The words stung, yet neither of them moved. The river beside them gurgled softly, as if trying to wash away the centuries of blood. Their hands brushed, and Ebiye didn't pull away. The world around them, with its bitter history and unforgiving ancestors, began to shrink. In that moment, there were no clans, no hate, just two young hearts reaching for something real. But deep within, Tari feared what would happen if they were ever discovered. A village is never silent for long. Whispers began to circle in Apiwari like dry leaves caught in a breeze. Children spoke of seeing Tari at the river with a stranger. Old women clucked their tongues and said her father's spirit must be restless. Mama Tari confronted her daughter, voice low but sharp. "You're seeing someone, aren't you?" Tari's heart pounded. "No," she lied. But Mama's eyes were searching and suspicious. "I lost one family member to the Boma people. I will not lose another." Across the river, things weren't any better. Chief Tamuno had heard similar whispers. Though Ebiye denied everything, the tension in his home grew thick. "You are the future of our people," his father told him. "Don't make foolish choices. You know what they took from us." Ebiye nodded, but his eyes betrayed his rebellion. The lovers felt the walls closing in, yet they couldn't stop. The river no longer felt neutral. It felt like a tightrope they walked with closed eyes and trembling feet. And still, they returned again and again, until one evening, Tari saw someone hiding in the bush near the riverbank. Watching. Waiting. The very next morning, the news broke like thunder. Tari had been seen with the son of the Boma chief. Her uncle, Okosi, stormed into their compound, his machete strapped to his back, fury lighting up his face. "Have you lost your mind?" he barked. "Do you want to disgrace your father's name?" Tari stood firm, tears in her eyes but voice steady. "I didn't choose where I was born. I only chose to feel something again." Her words cut deeper than any insult. On the Boma side, Ebiye was dragged before the Council of Elders. Chief Tamuno looked at his son with something close to disgust. "Do you realize the danger you have brought to us?" he asked. Ebiye did not flinch. "She is not our enemy," he replied. But no one listened. The fragile peace that had barely held both clans together began to splinter. Talks of retaliation, betrayal, and punishment floated on the air like gunpowder. Tari and Ebiye had become more than a secret. They were now symbols of dishonor. And worse, they had become tools in a brewing storm. The Apiwari council gathered beneath the sacred Irako tree, drums echoing softly in the background. Faces stern and voices heavy with anger, the elders spoke in clipped tones. "Tari has disrespected her bloodline," one elder said. "This is not love. It is betrayal." Mama Tari pleaded for leniency, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights. "She is young. Let us not lose another child to this war of ghosts." But the men were unmoved. Tradition, they argued, must not bend to youthful foolishness. Meanwhile, in the Boma clan, Chief Tamuno faced pressure from his advisors. "If your son continues this madness," one warned, "the Apiwari will see it as provocation. We cannot risk another war." The chief's face darkened. War had already claimed many lives, his own brother among them. Yet his son's defiance made him question where loyalty truly lay. That evening, both Tari and Ebiye were forbidden from leaving their compounds. Watchful eyes followed them everywhere. But love, once awakened, is not easily caged. Unable to meet in person, Tari and Ebiye turned to letters. They wrote by lantern light, hiding messages inside hollow bamboo tubes, which they floated across the river by night. Each letter was a lifeline, an echo of hope against the noise of hate. Tari wrote about the stars, about dreams she had of peace. Ebiye replied with sketches of birds in flight and promises that they would one day leave the delta behind. Their secret exchange brought comfort, but also danger. One night, Ebiye's younger cousin, Tamaradian, followed him to the river and found the floating tube. Though he didn't tell immediately, the seed of betrayal had been planted. Meanwhile, Tari's letters began to grow more desperate. "They want to marry me off," she wrote, "to a man from the next village. They say it will restore our honor." Ebiye's hands shook as he read her words. He could not let that happen. But what could he do when the world seemed built to keep them apart? Chief Okosi, Tari's uncle, wasted no time. He arranged for a meeting with the influential Kalabari clan, seeking an alliance through marriage. Her union with Tamuno Koko's son will bury this shame, he said. Mama Tari protested, but her voice was drowned out by the drumming of tradition. Tari was summoned and informed of her fate. Her eyes didn't blink. Her voice, quiet but defiant, said, "You are not marrying me off to pay for a war I never started." The response was swift. She was confined to her mother's hut, forbidden from speaking to anyone. Food was brought to her by her aunt, who wept silently each time. On the other side of the river, Ebiye plotted. He knew the Kalabari marriage would be announced during the next market festival. Time was slipping. He considered running away with Tari, but the forest between their clans was treacherous and full of rebel scouts. Still, love pushed him to act. He began carving a canoe, night after night, in secret. The festival arrived with singing, masquerades, and palm wine flowing like water. But for Tari, it felt like a funeral. She wore a coral necklace and a wrapper she hated, her heart sinking as her betrothed, Koko Jr., smiled like a man who had just won a prize. Ebiye, meanwhile, had finished his canoe. Disguised as a trader, he crossed the river at dawn, slipping through the trees and into Opuwari unnoticed. He had one goal: to see Tari and take her away before the marriage was sealed. As the drumming reached a fevered pitch, Tari was led to the central square. But just before the marriage rites began, a scream pierced the air. Ebiye had arrived, bold and unafraid. "I will not let this happen," he cried. The elders roared in outrage. Okosi drew his machete, but Mama Tari stepped between them. Chaos erupted, some calling for Ebiye's head, others stunned by his audacity. Amid the confusion, Tari grabbed Ebiye's hand. For a moment, it seemed they might escape. But then, the warriors surrounded them. The lovers were dragged before the Opuwari elders. "You have defiled this land," Okosi spat. "This boy is the son of our enemy." But one elder, old and nearly blind, raised his hand. "Wait. Let us think." War, he reminded them, had cost too much already. Perhaps, he suggested, Ebiye could be used, not killed, but traded. His father still holds influence. Let us make him the price of peace. Okosi hesitated, then nodded. A message was sent across the river. "Come for your son, and bring a peace offering." Chief Tamuno received the message in stunned silence. He had not expected the Opuwari to spare his son. The demand was simple: end land claims, share farming rights, and disband border patrols. The offer was steep, but it came with a catch. If Tamuno refused, Ebiye would be executed. Torn between duty and blood, he wrestled with the impossible. Meanwhile, Ebiye sat in chains, beside Tari, whispering, "No matter what they do to us, I will never regret loving you." The river, once a place of escape, had now become a battlefield. Chief Tamuno stared long into the flames of his hearth as the village elders debated the Opuwari demand. "They want our land, our pride, and now they have my son as leverage," he said bitterly. The room fell silent. His wife, Ebiye's mother, broke the tension. "You once said peace was worth any price. Does that change now because it is our son in the fire?" Her words stirred something deep within the chief. He had spent years negotiating for stability, but now it came down to a choice between land and legacy, between holding on to pride or saving his child. Eventually, the clan reached a consensus. They would meet the Opuwari halfway, grant limited land access, and open trade routes in exchange for Ebiye's return. The deal would be sealed in a public gathering, witnessed by both clans. But not all were in favor. Some of Tamuno's warriors muttered of betrayal. "They kill our people and take our sons? Where is the justice in that?" One spat. The chief held firm. "If justice demands blood, then we have learned nothing." Yet he knew peace was still fragile, and any spark could shatter it again. While the clans prepared for the ceremonial exchange, Mama Tari took her own steps. She visited the shrine of Ojima, the spirit of the river, and poured libation in the moonlight. "Let no more blood fall," she whispered. Then she knelt beside her daughter and brushed her hair gently. "You are your father's child, stubborn and strong. But love like this, it is both a blessing and a burden." Tari looked at her mother through swollen eyes. "Do you hate me?" Mama Tari sighed. "No. I fear for you. That's all." Later that night, she visited Abiye's cell. The boy looked thinner, but his eyes remained calm. "Why did you chase my daughter?" she asked. Ebiye met her gaze, without flinching. "I didn't chase her. We found each other. Maybe fate was tired of the hatred between us." She nodded slowly, her heart torn. "If this peace fails, they will blame you both." Ebiye looked down. "Then let us succeed where our fathers failed." For the first time, Mama Tari saw not just a Boma boy, but a young man who loved her daughter enough to risk his life. And in her heart, a tiny flame of hope began to flicker. The entire delta turned its eyes to the gathering at Igboma Field, the ancient borderland where many wars had begun, and perhaps where peace could now be born. Banners flew in the breeze. Drummers beat a steady rhythm as elders from both clans took their seats beneath a massive silk canopy. The air buzzed with tension. Tari and Ebiye were led to the center, flanked by guards. Their hands were still bound, but their heads were held high. Chief Okosi stepped forward. "We bring the boy to bargain for peace, not because we are weak, but because we seek to end cycles of vengeance." Chief Tamuno responded, his voice stern. "We accept your terms, for the sake of the next generation." The elders chanted blessings, poured libations, and passed kola nuts between them. But just as the deal was about to be sealed, a cry rang out from the crowd. A young Opuwari warrior lunged forward with a dagger, aiming straight for Ebiye. Screams erupted. Chaos unfolded. In a blur, Tari threw herself between the blade and Ebiye. The dagger slashed her shoulder, sending blood across the ceremonial mat. The crowd gasped as she fell. Ebiye caught her, shouting for help. Warriors grabbed the attacker and dragged him away. "This is madness," Chief Tamuno roared. "You ask for peace and then draw blood?" Okosi, stunned, rushed to his niece's side. "Tari, speak to me," he whispered, for the first time calling her name with fear instead of anger. Tari gritted her teeth. "If my blood brings peace, let it be the last drop spilled." Her voice was faint but firm. The silence that followed was heavy with shame. An elder from the Boma side stepped forward, lifted his staff, and declared, "Let this girl be remembered as the one who chose love over war." The deal was not just accepted, it was sworn upon her pain. That night, both clans lit torches along the riverbanks in her honor. For the first time in generations, the flames danced not for war, but for unity. Tari recovered slowly, surrounded by both Opuwari and Boma healers. Mama Tari never left her side, and even Chief Tamuno visited once, laying a woven sash at her feet. "You are the bridge we never dared build," he said solemnly. Ebiye remained close, watching over her with quiet devotion. The warriors who once mocked him now offered guarded nods. He had earned their reluctant respect. Despite the peace agreement, not everyone was satisfied. Some murmured that the union of Tari and Ebiye mocked tradition. Others whispered that they were cursed. But the elders stood united for once. "We have lived in the ashes of old wars too long," one said. "It is time we rise." Tari and Ebiye walked again by the river, no longer in secret. The same river that once divided them now reflected their joined shadows. They had not only survived, they had changed the course of history. And though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear: love, when brave enough, could heal even the deepest wounds. The peace agreement had brought a fragile calm, but the idea of a formal union between Tari and Ebiye stirred discomfort on both sides. Still, whispers turned into discussions, and soon, a controversial proposal emerged: an interclan marriage to seal the peace. The Opuwari elders hesitated. "This is not just a marriage," one muttered. "It is the breaking of a curse." Chief Tamuno agreed, but with caution. "If they marry, it must be in neutral land. with both clans present. The riverbank, where it all began, was chosen. Preparations were modest. No loud drums, no masquerades, just two families cautiously sharing space. As the day drew near, old wounds flared. A group of Boma youth protested. "What if she poisons him?" they shouted. In Apiwari, others warned, "Do not let your daughter be a trophy in their hands." Yet through the noise, Tari and Ebiye stood firm. Their love was no longer a secret, nor a rebellion. It had become a symbol. The ceremony would go on, no matter who stayed or left. The sun rose slow and golden on the day of the ceremony. Elders from both clans lined the riverbank, while palm fronds swayed gently in the breeze. Tari wore a beaded head wrap, Ebiye a white wrapper with coral ornaments. There was no priest, only the river between them and a mat of woven grass where they stood. They exchanged vows not just of love, but of peace, watched by ancestors whose names were sung in low chants. As they tied the traditional cloth binding their hands, Mama Tari and Chief Tamuno each stepped forward. "Let this bond end the silence," Mama Tari said. Chief Tamuno added, "Let this union mark a new beginning." There were no loud cheers, just quiet claps and sighs. The ceremony ended not in celebration, but reflection. It was more than a wedding. It was a risk, a statement, a hope sown into the soul of the Delta. The river, once a witness of blood, now carried laughter in its ripples. Peace, though declared, was still learning to grow. Crops were shared, borders reopened, and children from both clans began attending joint storytelling nights. Yet tensions simmered beneath the surface. A Boma merchant's cart was burned near Apiwari land. An Apiwari fisherman was accused of sabotage. Tari and Ebiye pleaded with both sides. "We must not fall into old habits," Tari said at a gathering. "We must water peace like a plant. If we ignore it, weeds will return." They began community work together, building a school at the river's edge where children from both clans could learn. It was a small building, but it held large dreams. Ebiye taught basic writing. Tari started teaching girls how to speak boldly. Their efforts were met with both praise and side glances. "They are good," an old woman said, "but the world is not always kind to good people." Still, the seed had been planted, and it began to grow. Few months after the wedding, the school building was set on fire. The flames lit up the sky, and by dawn, only ash remained. Ebiye found the charred remains of his students' drawings. Tari picked up a burned slate and broke into tears. "Why?" she asked. The culprits were never found, but the message was clear. Not everyone wanted peace. The act shook the fragile balance they had built. Rumors spread fast. "This is proof the Apiwari never changed," some Boma elders claimed. Others blamed jealous youth from both sides. Instead of retreating, Tari and Ebiye rebuilt. With help from friends and even a few unexpected allies, the school rose again, stronger this time, with a stone foundation. "We will not be silenced," Ebiye declared. Their courage rekindled something in the people. New volunteers came to teach. Youth groups from both clans met in open forums. Tari stood before them, no longer quiet. "We can live in peace," she said, "but only if we fight for it every day." A year passed. The riverbank that once hosted screams now held laughter. The school expanded. Children danced in the sand, and elders sat beneath trees discussing trade, not war. Tari walked the same path her father once did, only now as a voice of reason, not grief. She had turned her pain into purpose. Ebiye often joked, "You were born to change this place." And in many ways she had. But they never forgot what it cost. On the anniversary of the peace agreement, both clans gathered once again at the riverbank. Flowers were floated downriver in memory of those lost. Tari lit a small lantern and whispered her father's name. "See me now," she said. Not as a child of grief, but as a woman of hope. As the lanterns drifted into the dark, they illuminated a simple truth. Out of ashes, something beautiful had finally begun to grow. Moral lessons from Ashes of Amasoma. Love has the power to bridge deep divides. Tari and Ebiye's relationship shows that genuine connection can transcend hatred passed down through generations. True love sees beyond tribe, history, and bitterness. Holding on to past grudges only deepens pain. The feud between the Opuwari and Boma clans serves as a warning against the dangers of inherited hatred. Clinging to old wounds prevents healing and progress. Peace is not given. It must be fought for and protected. Peace doesn't come easily. It requires sacrifice, patience, and constant effort from both sides. Tari and Ebiye demonstrate that building peace means standing up even when it's risky. The courage of a few can inspire the change of many. Even when their communities rejected them, Tari and Ebiye chose to act boldly. Their bravery sparked conversations, healing, and eventually peace. Forgiveness is the first step toward rebuilding trust. Both clans had to choose forgiveness over revenge. The path to unity began when they realized that no one truly wins in war. Youth have the power to change tradition for the better. Tari and Ebiye represent a new generation willing to question harmful customs. Change often begins with the youth who dare to ask, "Why must we continue this way?" True leadership listens to both heart and reason. Mama Tari and Chief Tamuno showed that good leaders are those who listen, even when it's painful, and put the good of the community before personal pride. Education is a tool for peace and understanding. By building a school, Tari and Ebiye laid the foundation for a future where children could learn tolerance, unity, and shared identity. Silence in the face of injustice is a form of betrayal. When people choose not to speak or act against wrongs, out of fear or tradition, they become part of the problem. Tari's defiance showed that silence must be broken. Healing takes time, but it begins with a choice. The river, once a place of sorrow, became a symbol of healing. Like the river, peace flows slowly but surely when nurtured with effort and hope. Thanks for watching. We encourage you to leave comments, share, like, and subscribe so that you will be the first to be notified of our next video coming up.